In this segment, we're going to talk about the ultra commercial. There's a 550,000 BTU boiler and a 750,000 BTU ultra commercial. The boiler itself, this front jacket portion is removable. There's handles in the side of the jacket so you can pick it off and take it out of your way so you have access to the heat exchanger compartment. As far as the top of the boiler goes, on the left side, this is the 6-inch termination. It's going to be a 6-inch termination on both the 550,000 and the 750,000 BTU boiler. There's also a fresh air inlet. This fresh air inlet is also 6-inch on both the 550 and the 750. It can be vented either sealed combustion or direct exhaust, either or. The exhaust port has an integral drain, so any condensation into PVC piping or any rainwater that runs back from the exterior of the building down into the exhaust port will be caught in the trough and brought over and connected into the condensate trap. It's PVC venting up to 100 feet with 2 elbows. It cannot be cellular foam core PVC. It can be sealed combustion with both pipes going to the exterior of the building or direct exhaust. If you go with the direct exhaust option, we have a kit with an air filter to put over the fresh air intake so nothing from within the building, dirt, debris, makes it down into the heat exchanger compartment area. We have a filter kit for that. The display, we have a temperature and pressure gauge, a 3.5-inch LCD screen, which will display everything that's going on within the boiler. We currently have it running through just to show all the different modes. And then the push button portion. If you're familiar with our residential ultra boiler, this is the exact same display that's on the residential boiler. Every function of the keys works exactly the same. One of our goals from the residential to the commercial transition was we wanted to reuse as many components as we possibly could to make the transition for our contractors easier to go from a residential installation to a commercial installation. On the right side of the boiler, we have the supply, the gas, and the return, and we'll cover that more when we remove the jacket. There's real nice clips. They fold up, they rotate around, and then they just lift back. And there's one on each side. You'll lift them, rotate them, lift them, and this allows you to remove the jacket. Jacket will just tip back, and we can put it off to the side. Okay, now that we have the cover off the ultra commercial boiler, we're going to go through and just point out key spots on the boiler and go through the components on the boiler. This is the exhaust port. This sensor will be removed. You can pull this sensor out and then remove the rubber grommet. And if you're doing a combustion test, this is where you'll take your combustion test. This is the flue passageway up to the transition to the PVC. This is cast aluminum, and there's a clean out right here on the base. You can take this out, and it gives you a view down into the condensate base, and you'll be able to see what's going on down the condensate base. It's also where you can take and hose that area out and make sure your condensate base inside the boiler is clean. This is a cutaway boiler, and what we have here, this is the burner, and on the rear section, this is a 750,000 BTU heat exchanger. On the rear section, there's tabs that the burner sets in to make sure that the burner mounts into the boiler level. These are the waterways. The water pattern on this boiler is from the bottom up. The flue pattern on the boiler is from the top down. So as we send the gas down through the burner, we ignite, we fire onto the burner, and then we force the flue gases down between this pin area, and the heat is extracted through the pins, transferred into the waterways, and we heat the water, and then it comes up to the top of the boiler and exits out through the top of the boiler and heads off to the heating system. This plate right here, this is the clean out plate. This plate will be removed for your annual servicing. You just undo all these nuts, the whole front plate will come off. We have a maintenance kit that you can purchase. It gives you the gasketing material, the high temp silicone. It gives you everything you need to take that cover plate off and put it back on and not have any issues and worry about repairing a gasket or anything. That's a good view from this side of the boiler. One other thing to mention is zero clearance on this side of the boiler, zero clearance on the back of the boiler. The front of the boiler, you're going to leave yourself enough clearance so you can get in there and perform service on it. and on the right side of the boiler, you're going to want to leave yourself enough room. That's where all your piping and connections will take place. We swing around to the right side of the boiler, and over here we have our wire transitions from the control compartment down into the heat exchanger compartment. We have a pressure switch, air pressure proving switch. The reason for the pressure switch on the commercial boiler is we have a very large fan, and we need to make sure that we don't blow the condensate out of the condensate trap. So we're monitoring the airflow across the heat exchanger with this pressure switch. There's also an outlet. All our ultra boilers, residential and commercial, have an outlet in the side of them. So if you need to plug your condensate trap in or condensate pump in, you can plug it right into this receptacle. Drop down, this is the supply header on the boiler. In that supply header, the boiler comes standard with a low water cutoff. There's also a temperature sensor, and there's also the temperature and pressure port here where we transfer the information up to the display so you can see the temperature and the pressure on the boiler at all times. The ignition cable comes down from the control tray right down to the igniter. The igniter mounts right here. That also comes in the service kit, the maintenance kit. There's a ground wire connected to that. Drop down a little bit in the center of the heat exchanger. We have a dual sensing sensor in the middle of the heat exchanger. That monitors the heat exchanger temperature. And then we drop down a little bit further, and we have a cutaway of the return tapping. There's a diverter tubes that go in the return port. They go down along the whole length of the boiler, and they make sure we have the correct amount of flow to each section so we can keep all of our sections at the same temperature. Back up to the top, this is our combustion blower. And the combustion blower is hooked to a venturi. The venturi is then tied into, comes down around this elbow. There's a shutoff valve. Goes into a 120 volt gas valve. And then just below that we have a high pressure gas switch and a low pressure gas switch. And the reason we have the high and low pressure gas switches here and the low water cutoff on the boiler meets CSD1 standards, CSD1 compliant right out of the box, which will save a ton of time on labor on the install. Coming out of the bottom of the low pressure switch, we drop down off of the header here, come down around, we have a flex line to the gas pipe coming out of the side of the boiler, 1.25 inch gas pipe. There's also, right behind the high pressure switch, there's a plug. This is where you would get your incoming gas pressure readings. These are 120 volt high and low pressure gas switches. They're adjustable. And if they happen to go out on high or low pressure, as you can see here, there's a little LED light right now that's on. We have low gas pressure. And they are resettable right here with the cover on. You just push this little red button on the low pressure or the high pressure switch, and you can reset the control. On the gas valve itself, if you need to make adjustments during startup, this cover removes, and you'll put the Allen key right into the center here, and it has a plus and a minus sign for minimum flow and maximum flow. And you will adjust this about 1/8 of a turn, 1/16 of a turn at a time. This is very sensitive, so as you start to make your adjustments and you're fine-tuning the boiler, you'll want to make your adjustments here, and it's going to be, again, it's very sensitive, so you'll make very slight adjustments at a time. Behind this screw, there's an offset setting, and you can set your offset. You're going to refer to the manual to find out what your combustion numbers need to be, but there's an adjustment in here for the offset. That will be done at high fire only. Coming around, you'll see this clear tube. This clear tube goes all the way up around the heat exchanger and ties into the exhaust port. So any condensation that runs back to the boiler will get caught in the rain trough, and it will run down and tie into condensate trap. The condensate trap mounts directly into the base of the boiler, and then there's a clear tube that comes off of the bottom. This red cap gets removed. We have a clear tube that comes off, drops down, comes up and out through the side of the jacket. And we give you all the PVC fittings you need and the clear tube to get you outside of the jacketed area. This black tube right here, this is an air snorkel. This basically takes the fresh air in that gets dropped into the cabinet area from the fresh air inlet. The fresh air comes into the whole jacketed area, gets drawn in through the snorkel, up into the venturi. The gas and the air mix here. They get swirled together inside the combustion blower. They get injected into the center portion of the burner, and they ignite right here. This is your igniter cable and your igniter. And then we'll produce flame in the chamber area. And again, we push the flue gases down through the pin, extract the energy out of it, transfer it into the water, and allow it to get pumped out to the system. The boiler still needs to be piped primary, secondary. So you got a 2-inch supply, you have a 2-inch return. We're going to take them out, we're going to do primary, secondary piping. That's a tour of the heat exchanger compartment. One thing, this is where the air pressure switch goes. It hooks right down here. This clear tube comes all the way up and ties into the air pressure proving switch up here. Underneath the control pod is where the controls are. The display, I said earlier, same as our residential model. That just folds down. This is different. This is added to the commercial model. This is what we call an expansion module. This expansion module basically eats up additional amperage that the larger boiler uses. There is a green connector right here. This is for the 4th pump outlet. The boiler itself can handle 3 pumps up to 2.2 amps each. This expansion module handles the boiler pump, which is up to a 10 amp pump. So this circuit is isolated strictly for the boiler pump. So this is power in and power out to the circulator on the boiler for the boiler pump. That is pump number 4. That's your first power circuit coming to the boiler. Across the top, we have all the knockouts for your electrical circuits. One electrical circuit is going to come in to power this pump only. The other electrical circuit is going to come in to this terminal strip, go through the switch that's on the boiler, and that will power up the U-control. There's also a transformer in here that we use in conjunction with the U-control, and then we have an isolation relay to work in conjunction with the gas valve. Coming across, this is the U-control. This meets UL 353 listing and also helps us comply with CSD1. There's some slight changes in this compared to the residential model, but the footprint is the same and the functionality is 99% the same as the residential model. You can identify it by the blue label. The residential models have a black label and the commercial models have a blue label. All of the pre-wired, everything that you see right here is pre-wired from the factory. All you need to give the boiler is a heat input and the boiler is ready to run. A heat, hot water input, whatever you want to run off the boiler, you're going to do it the same way. Outdoor sensor comes with the boiler. First input would be here, second input would be here, third input would be here. So you have the capability of 3 inputs and 3 outputs of 2.2 amps each, and then the 1 10 amp output for the boiler pump is going to be right here. So everything on the U-control we reused and wanted it to be exactly the same as the residential model to try to make everyone's job a little easier in the field in transitioning from the residential marketplace to the commercial marketplace. One other thing we did is we have a plastic window right here. If you need to see if the boiler has spark, you can actually look down through this plastic window and that will allow you to see into the chamber area to see if the boiler is sparking when it's time for ignition. That is a walk around the whole ultra boiler, the ultra commercial boiler, from your flue outlets, your fresh air inlets, to the U-control, to the expansion module, to the display module, to the heat exchanger, and all the components that work in conjunction with the combustion blower. We're still using a negative pressure gas valve. We're relying on the boiler to draw its gas through the gas valve, mix it in the combustion blower, and inject it in. Same technology we use on the residential model. We've just stepped it up to a larger boiler and use it on the commercial version.